Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Midweek Takeaway. Today we're joined by Geoff Baker, Non-Executive Director, and Che Collin, Executive Director of BSF Enterprises. Welcome back, gents. How's things?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you.
See you both too as well. Just saw the company recently gave an operational update to the market, and there was many highlights in that RNS. Do you want to give the listeners a lowdown on these news pieces?
3D Biotissues in the last 2 or 3 months since relisting as part of BSF Enterprise, we've doubled our lab capacity. We're now operating at 2,400 square feet. That allows us to separate out the manufacturing side, manufacturing of the city mix, manufacturing of the ethyl lipopeptide, and also control of the manufacturing of the different tissues, meat, skin, etc. Separate that side from the research and development side as we continue to improve upon each of those products, which is great. We've also, in the last 3 months, recruited 3 more people. We've now an R&D senior R&D scientist from Fujifilm, big company in biologics production. He is focusing on bringing the showcase steak for the demonstration purposes. We also have a R&D technician who's supporting the manufacturing side, and also an office manager. It's really helping take the load off the operational bits and bobs that we have to do in order to make sure everything gets paid and etc. The capacity in terms of the production then of the city mix, this additional space then gives us that extra availability to scale up the production of the city mix to meet expected demands. We can now make enough city mix for customers to add to their media, for them to make up to 1,000 litres of media a month. And this is, of course, what we intend to do in order to get it into the customer's hands, or increasingly get it into the customer's hands ahead of larger deals, whether that's direct sales or a licensing opportunity.
So who do you expect the customers to be, Che? Who's likely to be the people who buy this stuff?
Well, we've initially been looking at the lab-grown, other companies operating in the lab-grown meat alternative protein space. That's because of the unique capabilities of the city mix, i.e. it's animal-free, which is important. Also, it's chemically defined, meaning people can actually know what's in it. This is critical for when you're using it as a food or a medicine. They need to know exactly what's in it. There can't be any secret ingredients. And with the strong IP we have, we're in that position where we can share exactly the contents of it. And also, it's developed from agricultural waste products, which also ticks a big box for the lab-grown meat community, being towards carbon neutral, etc., and not adding any further pollution as a consequence of creating the lab-grown meat. So that's been our initial focus. However, the need for city mix goes beyond the lab-grown meat community. Equally, companies that are producing vaccines or producing drugs or even cells for therapies themselves all require serum-free media, and we're looking at those that market as well. And then finally, the research use only market for people in universities and other research labs that would like the convenience of using city mix to replace the animal serum in their studies.
Just as an indication of the product itself, city mix, is it any special storage, or does it last a certain length of time, or what is the situation?
It should be stable at room temperature. We've not looked at it for a year or so or anything like that, but over several months it remains active and useful. So we don't foresee any particular challenges with storage or shipping and things like that. We're actually producing a concentrated form, which then keeps costs down in terms of production, but also keeps costs down in terms of shipping weights, etc. as well.
One thing that Che, that sticks out in the eye, putting the city mix aside for 1 minute. There's a statement saying obviously you remain on track to produce and unveil the UK's first 100% lab grown meat this year. What is the plans? Would you unveil that at a trade show or to the media? Do you want to talk us through how that will be kind of like announced?
I can't really talk to you through the details of the announcement because we're working on that currently in collaboration with the marketing agency.
Well, Phil, I'll jump in here, and we're hoping to. We're not going to make a huge convention centre full of or restaurant, all sitting around ready to cut up a very small piece of meat. But we are looking forward to a very exciting latter part of the year in this 6-month period running through the back of the calendar year, where we'll be producing a showcase bit of meat. There is talk that we may. Maybe we should be thinking about getting a celebrity chef there who's able to slice up a bit and cook a bit and tell us whether it's a bit of meat that he'd love. But yeah, that's still being worked through. So I think it's going to be an exciting time.
I'm sure there'll be some fanfare associated around it.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just for people who don't know that, effectively this is the creation of real meat. So we're not talking about substitute meat here. We're talking about the normal cell structure, the normal fat structure, the normal everything of a piece of meat. So this is, I assume, not for vegetarians. This is meat, because it is going to be meat. Is this correct?
That's a difficult one to answer, Kev. You'd have to ask a vegetarian that, because it's a kind of personal choice of how they become a vegetarian. There's certainly no animals being harmed in the production, so if that's the reason for being vegetarian, then they could eat it.
The difficult one is it's like an ethical kind of equation involved, isn't it?
But the original cells to start the process have to be meat itself, yes?
Originally, they would have come from an animal, yes. When we scale up, or when we're producing a large amount, then we can take that as a biopsy if we choose to do.
Okay. So originally, yes, but then after production starts to process the thing, then it's self-fulfilling. Then it becomes a reproduction of itself. Then, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, Geoff, question for you, because obviously this is one part of this group of companies that you're putting together as a whole process to go through. So the board continues to evaluate potential acquisition opportunities in line with its strategy to acquire a suite of technologies that underpins the development of tissue templating for corneas, meat, and leather. Okay, so obviously now you're going to spill the beans and tell us how many companies you've got on the list to purchase. Obviously, you're not going to say that, but I want you to now give me the diplomatic answer that you're now going to give us.
I'm glad I didn't tell you what we were doing in private. You shape it around that particularly. But no, we've got half a dozen, maybe 8 companies we've approached, and they've approached us. We're starting to talk. We're looking at companies primarily UK-based, or like some could be in Europe, that really enhance the operation of what 3D Biotissue are doing and add to our IP strategy of developing lab-grown meat and lab-grown leather. So it's an exciting time that we're all living in, and we all keep saying that. But I read with great interest in The Economist that's just out that the Netherlands back in June just passed a capping of cows and cattle herds because they want to reduce nitrogen in the air, which is exactly where we can solve all those problems. They're actually cutting 30% of the country's cows and pigs to reduce nitrogen in the air and nitrogen next to native nature reserves. So it's starting to happen already. This is something that's really taking shape and will be affecting all of us in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, the middle class world wants meat, doesn't it? And the consequences of producing that meat are pretty serious on our planet. You know, they're using a huge amount of grain to feed the animals to start with, and they're producing a huge amount of gas. I presume methane is the main gas that they're producing.
In this Netherlands example, it's nitrogen pollution. It's the ammonia within the fertilizer and in the manure that's produced by all these cows and cattle. So okay.
I think we also talked, Geoff, about the cosmetics as well. Is there things happening as well in the background with the whole cosmetic range?
Yep, they're testing and going through a whole process in Asia and China at the moment, where we're hoping to start to sell product that has the Etzel as part of the cosmetic range.
Very good.
And what about the corneas?
That's more long term. When you look at what we've got, the short term is the Etzel and the City Mix. That's the serum-free media. Then medium term, we have the meat and leather products. And for the longer term, it's the corneas and getting product out, and that will still be got a time horizon of 3 to 5 years.
We found a different supplier or manufacturer for some of the Etzel components, and they're half the price of where we were before. So that's good news. Potentially double the profit.
And I mean, obviously, this progress from doubling the amount of the mix that you can create is going to create a revenue stream, which will be helpful, obviously, in moving the company forward, and maybe the not need quite as much cash as you will obviously need as you produce and move forward in this biotech area, which is good. You don't often find a biotech that actually is going to produce revenue at the same time as trying to produce this magic, if you like, which is the lab-grown meat.
Correct. We have a focus on revenue generation. That will always be maintained with the products that 3D Biotissue have been able to produce. It's will provide a good revenue stream.
Yeah, and if we look at the performance of the stock since it came out, I mean, basically, I don't think you could have actually launched the company at a worse time in history in terms of the stock market, if we're honest, yes? And it launched at what, 7.5p a share?
7.3, yeah.
7.3. So you're actually ahead of that now because it's showing 7.42 last purchase today.
Good.
So you're actually above the price that you started on. Yeah, no, the announcement today was that you're up 3.7% today, but it's made gains over the last few sessions as well. And I think the reason why is because it got knocked for no reason at all. Ultimately, you had no bad news. There was no nothing. The market was just poor, and there's very little volume. And there's not much volume today either. But the reality is it's time to start again, really, I think, because when you launched, nobody was interested in anything. So now it's a good time to think, okay, what is going to be happening for the future? And it's quite obvious that this is something the world is probably going to use, and it's going to have to pay for it.
And we're there to be able to supply the tools.
Yep, supply the tools, and not just the whole meat side of things. I mean, there's a cycle here, isn't there? I mean, from what we've spoken about before, Geoff, in terms of, producing the meat itself is obviously not going to be done by the biotech company. The greater production of the mix is not going to be done by the biotech company. So all of these things give you opportunities, I presume, to have different deals and different situations with new companies to develop BSF Enterprises. So, yeah, it's very exciting, I think,
Correct. That is indeed.
On the midweek takeaway, what is your favorite takeaway?
Well, I've been perfecting the stir-fried rice at home recently, so that's what I'll be doing. It's a kind of home takeaway.
Home Chinese takeaway.
Yeah.
So tell us about it. Is it a Chinese stir-fry or?
Yeah. Well, it's
what are you going to use in this? Is it going to involve lab-grown meat in the future?
It will do in the future, yes. But at the moment, it's leftovers from yesterday's roast chicken.
Oh, nothing wrong with that.
Sure, it's thoroughly cooked.
Yeah.
And Kevin, the beauty of that stir-fry meat is that we can make the meat ready to go into a stir-fry, so it's all just thinly made, so it just can drop into the stir-fry without having to chop it all up and do all those things to prepare it.
And I assume without those tendons inside it, so it doesn't become tough. It can be soft.
Yeah, and flavored.
Okay, so what sauce are we using here? Are we, you're saying you're perfecting this. Are we?
Well,
we got soya sauce. A bit of oyster sauce in there. What?
No oyster sauce. No, it's quite simple with stir-fried rice. So it's rice, egg, spring onions, chicken, and soy sauce.
Probably some vegetable or chicken stock in there or something like that.
No, you don't need any. Honestly, you don't need any of that. It's quite. It's that's why I quite like it, because it's relative simplicity ingredients wise, but it's how you do it. It's the trick. For example,
you have to do them all separately and then put it all together.
No, there's an order, and I'll give you one small tip is that when you add the soy sauce, you pour it around the edge of the frying pan or wok. It then kind of boils at the edges and concentrates. And that's kind of one of these. There's several little tips that you do to perfect it.
Okay, well, you need to get some of those dried shiitake mushrooms, put them in some boiling water, and then let them rehydrate. Then you chop them finely, and then you use the stock from the shiitake mushrooms inside. Very nice.
Okay, good.
Okay. Geoff, now we've entered a cooking show. What would be your...
Listen, I'm as boring as one thing when it comes to food. I think I've said that to you once before, but no, I'm a dumpling man. Forget about that. I'll either get takeaway dumplings or make them myself at home. And
are we talking dim sum dumplings here, or
No, we're talking good northern Chinese dumplings. Flour and water and in the ingredients inside.
Like the shumai ones that you get in the wooden boxes. I mean, they're good.
No, that's shumai, but dumplings, as in it's like. Well, they're dumplings. They're boiled or they're fried. I much prefer them boiled and just dipped in a good bit of vinegar or something.
Wow.
Yes, you that was right. You told us you were vegetarian, wasn't it? That's right.
Geoff Bacon, non-executive director, and Che Collin, executive director of BSF Enterprise. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, guys.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.